I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning Commission tonight for October 1st, 2019. We have 5 members of the Planning Commission present. Both Commissioners Luthi and Hatch are excused for the evening. Our first item on the night is the discussion about our meeting minutes from September 17th. I'll entertain a motion or discussion. Commissioner Thomas.
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes.
Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Thomas and a second from Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're unanimous on that. Thank you. Our first public hearing item up for the night is item number 2, the South Valley Regional Office Park at 6510 and 6550 South Airport Road. This is a preliminary subdivision plat for one lot on 19.59 acres in a preliminary site plan in an M1 zone for Quality Electrical Systems, Inc. Ken Wharton, looks like he's the agent for the applicant. So Ken, are you here? No, he's not, but I am. Come on forward, you're up. Just tell us your name and how we get a hold of you, and the time is yours.
My name is Stephen Sear. I'm the general manager.
Into the microphone for us, just for the record. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm Stephen Sear with the Quality Electrical Systems, the general manager of that facility that's spearheading this project. So,
Thank you. Floor is yours.
South Valley Regional Business Park is a subdivision that we are putting together for the main purpose of our Quality Electrical System expanding our facility, which we are right now in Midvale producing electrical equipment for the water, wastewater mining, as well as powerhouses, which are large power distribution centers that are running pumps and generators on the oil pipeline throughout the country. The reason we are building this facility is to facilitate the growth of our company in that region. If you want to go to the seconds. This is the building that we are proposing to build on the site. It is 180,000 square feet. It will house approximately 300 employees when we're fully staffed. We will be running large trucks out of this facility. They'll be housing these large ones. Go to the next slide, please. This is the overall plan of the site. We have the 180,000 square foot, which is on the top of the screen, which will house our manufacturing as well as our offices for our corporate office. The 150,000 square foot on the south end is a industrial retail that will be subleased to, and hopefully more of an industrial type tenant. Each of the suites are roughly about 6,200 square feet. There are 23 of them. The reason we are building and needed this facility, if you go to the next slide, please. We build these large powerhouses, and the facility we are in no longer facilitates the quantity or the size of the product that we're actually building. Next slide, please. This is a unit that we actually do build. This is roughly 75 to 80 feet. They weigh about 200,000 pounds when they're fully completed. And this is the type of units we'll be building in this facility. Next slide, please. This is the reason why we're having such doors on the front end of the building. Because of the size of the product that we're building, we have to have a straight run at the facility going out of it, as well as being able to pull the product out of the building, which can be at sometimes over 175 feet long, with a truck, trailer, jibs, and Jeeps on the back of it. So as you can see, this one is quite long. This is coming out of facility right now. Next slide, please. This is one half of that same one you saw in the first at Baton. Slide 2, please. This is one that we just sent up to Holly. This is roughly 75 feet long, but this is on a unit that we actually built ourselves to actually facilitate the size of this unit. This is one of the biggest ones we built. It's up in Holly Frontier, up in North Salt Lake. This is only half of the building. There's still another half that goes on the side of this one. This is actually a 26-foot wide building. Next slide. The reason, again, is you can see the large size of the trucks that we're having coming out of this facility. This one is an 18, excuse me, this is a 9-axle trailer carrying a product that's about 150,000 pounds. Next slide. And these are just all showing what type of products we build and what's be coming out of those doors we showed on the front of the building. Next slide. Again, same one on that same trailer. Next slide. This is the site where we're putting it at. This is 6510. We have begun excavating, excuse me, not excavating, but clearing and grubbing the property as of Monday. We are in we'd like to have this facility completed by this time next year. Next slide. That it? That's it. So I'm not really understanding why I'm here other than just to let you know what's going on. So any questions for me as far as the facility, what we do? And
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? You did a good job.
thank you.
Have a seat. We'll finish this up, and if we have anything that we need to address with you after the public hearing, we'll bring you back up. Let me get back to my agenda here. I believe, Ms. Elgin, you have this item, right?
Yes.
You're on.
Okay. What happened? Okay. The site is located in the M1 district for industrial. It's surrounded by other light industrial, public facilities, research park, and parks and open land. This is sorry. Okay, the subdivision plat. The purpose of the subdivision plat is taking those 3 parcels that we saw and combining them into one lot that's big enough for them to house this kind of operation on. The site plan is included just as an overview for you, so you can see how the site is laid out. Again, the Planning Commission is only reviewing the subdivision plat and those street-facing loading area doors. And this is the elevation. The applicant's elevation was one of the older renditions. You can see on the bottom it's got the facade that's going to face the street. The Design Review Committee recommended that they put something above the top of the doors and below the roof to kind of break up that big expanse. It's about 30 feet. And so they put signage on the one section and an awning. They added an awning in the 3 sections to appease the Design Review Committee. This is an overall view of the landscape just to kind of give you an idea of the direction that the applicant is taking with the landscaping, because the Planning Commission's responsibility at this point is to make sure that the doors, the loading areas, are properly screened with landscaping. So this is the blown up view of the landscaping in front of the building in question. And that is the landscaping in front of the second building, the lease building. Okay, for the trees, the applicant submitted their landscape plan. It's a little bit deficient. Their on-site trees, they're required to have 46, street trees 19, and parking lot trees 56, for a total of 121 trees. They have proposed 7 street trees, citing they didn't want to put any in sight triangles. I have spoken with the traffic engineer who said he didn't have any problem with trees that are on the approved street tree list being in the site triangles. And for the parking lot trees, the applicant actually has an option of doing 6% of the total parking area in landscape coverage, or the 56 trees. They have proposed 0.4% parking lot area landscaping. So number 4, or condition approval number 4 in your packet, suggests that the staff would be okay if they come up to 121 trees, their minimum requirement. They put the 12 of them will be the additional street trees that are required, adding 6 more into the detention basins in front, and then just dispersing the other 6 anywhere around their site. And staff feels that would meet the requirements for landscaping.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Green.
So, yeah, I'm confused now. So we're doing a preliminary subdivision plat. So that's the 3 parcels to 1.
Yes.
And then the street facing doors. And the reason why we're talking about the number of trees is based on the screening ordinance. Is that right?
That would be the best way to screen it.
Okay. Because when we have street facing doors with this kind of a facility, we have to screen them. Is that where we're going with this? Because that's why I was confused. We were talking about a landscape plan.
And so, the street tree things, or the street land, or the landscaping, we can handle as the staff level. So all we need your approval on is these triangular shapes. Is that enough to screen the doors from people that are coming north or south? I'm not saying that they can be screened as you're looking directly, but I think what we're mostly looking at is the screening adequate if somebody's coming from the north or the south? And I think the way the applicants designed it is a very good way. It gives you that triangular shape, and the trees he's proposing to put in are very large. You know, it'll take a few years for them to grow, but once they're at maturity, I think they'll do the job very well, so.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, this is our first public hearing. If anybody's here to speak on this item, specifically item number 2 tonight, please come on forward. The floor is yours. Not everybody at once. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then, and bring us back to the Planning Commission for further conversation. Commissioner Green.
I'm one of those guys that thinks that most of the time, I don't care if the doors face the street or not. So with that being said, I'm going to make the motion that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary subdivision plat and the street-facing loading areas for the South Valley Regional Park located at 6510 and 6550 South Airport Road with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of the report. So that's conditions 1 through 4, correct?
We have a motion, Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Green, a second by Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you guys for willing and wanting to do business in West Jordan. We appreciate you. You are free to go, or you can hang out and watch all the entertainment. Okay. You too. That brings us to our to our next item, which is the B.E. Moore Thrifty at 1609 West, 9000 South, and a conditional use permit for a secondhand store in a PC zone. Ann Press is our applicant. Ann, are you here? Or somebody here on your behalf? Come on forward.
Hi, my name is Laura Dietrich, and I'll be the manager of Be More Thrifty.
Excellent, thank you. You get to tell us what you want us to know.
Okay, so Be More Thrifty is going to be a secondhand store in West Jordan, and the focus of it is to help fund a different nonprofit called Christians Forward Southeast Asia. And Christians Forward Southeast Asia, CFSA, does humanitarian trips to Thailand, Romania, and other places around the world, and so we're trying to help them to fund more trips and have more opportunities. So we're gonna be a secondhand store, and we'll be consignment quality, but thrift store prices. So we'll be a nice, organized, clean place, and we'll be able to serve the people here in Salt Lake because they'll be able to come to our store and get those things, but then they'll also be helping people all over the world. So, some other things, we will be only having a drop-off during business hours, and things will only be taken through the back door, so it won't affect any customers coming through the front. And nothing will be stored or left outside. It will stay clean. We'll do our best to keep that clean. And we're excited to have the opportunity to do this in West Jordan. And thank you for your time and listening to us today.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Have you read
Commissioner Badone?
Have you read the 7 conditions and you're okay with all of those?
Yes, we agree, and we will do all those.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and bring you back up if there's any questions from
All right,
the
thank you.
public hearing. You're welcome, thank you. Mr. Forsyth?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, just to provide some context of where this is, so this is just over in the shopping center on the southeast corner of Redwood Road and 9000 South. So, more specifically, it's going to be within that shopping center between Asian City and the now vacant Shopco building. So this area is mostly commercial. This is the commercial area of the Fox Crossing planned development that was approved a few decades ago, and we feel it's, with this being primarily a retail use, it should be a pretty good fit for the area, considering there's already plenty of retail shops there and other commercial services. So as you can kind of see from this aerial map, looking at the parking lot, it's huge. So we've actually done a parking study and concluded that there's going to be a surplus of 468 parking stalls. So plenty of parking is going to be available, and that really shouldn't be much of a problem. The applicant did a good job of explaining the loading and unloading. We do have a condition of approval, just stating that if they have any large items, those do need to be loaded in the back, just to make sure we keep that front traffic aisle clear and that it's not interfering with parking or traffic flow. Another thing I should point out too is we don't, with this being a PC zone, we don't allow by ordinance any outdoor storage. So everything needs to be stored completely within the building. That is a condition of approval and is also one of the terms of their lease agreement. So we should be pretty covered and explicit on that. So with these findings, staff's recommending approval of the conditional use permit for Be More Thrifty.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, this is also a public hearing. If anybody would like to come speak about this item, time is yours. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring us back to the Planning Commission for discussion or motion. Commissioner England.
Does anybody have anything on this? I've got a motion then. Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for B.E. Moore Thrifty, located at 1609 West, 9000 South in a PC zone with the conditions of approval 1 through 7 listed on page 2 of this report.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner England, a second by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to this motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are unanimous. Thank you for your interest in business in West Jordan. We appreciate you. Item number 4, Eagle's Nest. This is 2947 through 3065 Hahn Drive, a rezone of approximately 7.88 acres from RR1D zone to RR20D for 20,000 square foot minimum lots. Brooks Properties, Kurt Brooks is the applicant. Floor is yours, sir. Welcome back.
Kurt Brooks. But what we've done is we went back, I think you've seen this once before, we went back and actually completed the subdivision. So what we're doing now is we're taking parcels that can't be developed individually and trying to develop them all together. So we're creating a road. I don't know if you can go to one of the next slides that shows the actual layout of the subdivision. That one right there. What we're proposing to do is put that road in. You do have some property on the other side, which we're gonna, at this point, it goes down just for a fire turnaround. So if you decide to want to extend that road later, you could. We're gonna put that road into city standard. We also are gonna put a fence completely around this subdivision. It'll have a 6-foot fence, either vinyl or precast. The only way we can develop these lots is the way we're trying to do it. As you can see, the 2 lots to the east and the west, they weren't on the original plan. The lot to the east is about 120 feet wide. There's no way to develop that on its own. And the one to the west, that frontal property there is 99 feet. So by city codes, you gotta have 100-foot frontage. So they can't really do anything with that existing property. So we've provided them a way to develop the back of that property and be able to kind of start cleaning this area up. If you look to the north of this subdivision, there's light industrial. So this kind of gives a buffer between the 1-acre lots on 8750, which we're not trying to change their zoning at all, and our half-acre lots, but still allow us to have animals. And so we're not taking the animal rights away. A lot of people think that's happening. That is not happening. The other thing it does is right now we could put 2 homes on an acre there by your current zoning. The problem is if I ever decide to sell those homes, I'd have to sell 2 homes on an acre. That's not gonna go over very well. And so we're just proposing that we can break these up to where we can actually utilize the lots and sell them off with houses on them. Right now, the density would be 1.4 per acre versus the 2 are actually allowed that I could go in there right now and do. There's no impact really to anything that's there that we can see, other than cleaning the place up and maybe giving the 3 lots to the east an idea of how to clean those up. Because this would kind of take it clear down to where the Jensens are, which they pretty much built that out on a private lane already, so.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll reserve you some time after the public hearing. Ms. Elgin?
Okay, the current zoning is RR1D, and they're asking to go down to 20,000 acre lots. It is in the very low density residential designation, but it is directly across the street from light industrial, and it's very near to the very high density residential and a transit oriented development, which is also very high density. As Mr. Brooks said, they added the parcel to the east and the west to get the area a little more cleaned up, like they said. You can see, not very well, but you can see in the aerial view that there are trailers and trucks and cars abandoned out there. There's a big dirt pile. That's mostly what those lands are being used for right now. He mentioned that the density is 1.4 units per acre, which the general plan allows for 2, but the zoning code only allows for 1 unit per lot. So he can't develop any further homes out there than what they are unless the zoning is changed. And I think the smallest lot, you'd probably be interested in that, is 21,395. The average of the lot sizes are 23,901. So staff recommends approval of this because it is consistent with the general plan.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
No, I'll wait.
Okay. This is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. I've got 5 cards, so I'm gonna call your name in that order, and then after those 5 people have had a chance to speak, if you wanna share your thoughts, you can queue up behind the last one. So I've got Jeff Deering, followed by Gerald Deering, Judy Calder, Samantha Molman, and Selena Dutson. Floor is yours. You have 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll
State
try
your
to
name-
keep it brief.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Deering. I live at 2837 West, 8750 South. I've actually been involved with several parcels in this area, trying to develop them into half-acre lots, and have never been told that it was even feasible or a possibility. So for someone to be able to come in and do that now is not only irritating, but contradictory to what I've been told they've been within the last year. Not only that, I'm a broker, real estate broker, 15 years experience, well, 17 years actually. I'm also the president of the Utah Real Estate Investors Association. This area is not meant for high density, even though it's surrounded by light commercial. Everyone I've talked to, I know many people in the engineering department, people on your committee probably recognize my name. I recently built my home on a 1 acre lot for that very reason, as I was told that this area would not be able to be subdivided in any future, that, foreseeable or not. So again, I do feel it will directly affect property values. I'm vehemently against anything happening in that area unless the entire area is rezoned to allow everybody to take advantage of that rezoning. You can't just piecemeal it, even if it's directly across from, light density industrial or high density. It doesn't matter. You can't tell one person one thing and then come in and allow someone else to do it. It's just not right. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
My name is Gerald During. I live at 2822 West, 8750 South. And we've been on 1 acre lots for 50, 60 years. And we had housing shoved down our throats with subdivision up above that they said they wouldn't put as many houses in as they did. They did it anyway. Then they took 1.5 acres and put about 30 condominiums or whatever they call them. And next to that, they built some more. And they built 300 or 400 apartments across the road from us on 32. And they built 400 or 500 apartments down on Hahn Drive, right on the corner where 27th and Hahn Drive come together. And he says it won't affect anything. What it affects is us people that have animals. These people move in and they want us to get rid of our animals because they stink. They smell good to me. I mean, I've been raising them for 50 years on this property. I've lived on there for 47 years actually, but I own 5 different homes there. I still own a couple more. And I wanted to take one of my properties that had a city street access and cut it in half and build a home behind it. I was denied that 25 years ago. 20 years ago, I have another property that's got a 30-foot drive right away into my home now. I own the house next to me, and there's another half acre there. I wanted to build another home for my mother on. That was denied because they said this was 1 acre rural residential, and it will always stay that way. It just seems like if you got enough money and enough pull, you get to do whatever you want. Our street used to be a dead-end street. We had a guy that lived at the top of the street that said he had to get to the hospital faster. So let's open it up. Well, they opened it up. He moved away a year later. Now the street's open as it's a hot rod street for everybody that comes out of those apartments up there. They think they can beat the traffic on 90th. We've asked to put speed bumps on there. They refused us that because we don't get enough traffic. Yet I can take you around all over the place and find speed bumps. There's a lot of new families moving in, a lot of young kids. My grandkids are living there. I don't want to see any more people in there. We got people running up and down that street I've never even seen. This is supposed to be rural residential. Leave it alone, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Calder.
My name is Judy Calder. I live at 3053 West, 8750 South. You heard from me last time, a month or so ago, and I have similar thoughts to the Deerings. We were pretty well assured that this would stay rural residential and allow horses. And that's why most of us on that street moved there, at least all of the ones that have been my neighbors for many, many years. I've lived there for 50 years. We've had horses. We have horses on the property right now. And I agree that horse property and non-horse property do not mix. That's been our main fear all along, is that they will not like our animals or the flies and the smells and everything else that goes with it. Not only that, but they're right. We were pretty much told we couldn't have anything more than one house on an acre. And we heard from the developer that just spoke, and he told us last time at this meeting that that area was now zoned for 2 or half-acre lots in essence, because two homes on 1 acre. And I was not aware that had ever happened, and that was cleared up today by your people. As far as we knew, it was still 1 acre lots. And I know one of you said that it would be better than the junk that was on that property currently. But there are already ordinances against junk piling up on properties and used cars that do not run, and we already have those laws. I would like you to, instead of, affecting all the rest of us, make those people clean up that junk instead of rezoning everything. And another lady said that our properties were not all 1 acre lots. That's true, but we were not rezoned. The people that got a variance. We did not rezone the area. So I don't understand why a developer could come in and want to make money making a subdivision when this is supposed to be 1 acre horse property, rural residential. That's why most of us bought there, and I would like to keep it that way, and I'm sure most of us would. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Molman, hope I said that right.
I'm Samantha Molman. I'm 3111 West, 8750 South. We bought this property 6 years ago in the fact that it is horse property and that we would have 1 acre to keep my horses on. We were also told that this would stay 1 acre properties. I have young children, 4 and 6, or 7 now. We bought this property so the kids had a place that was safe and a place that they could play and feel like it wouldn't be, I grew up in the country and we had a lot more freedom, and I wanted my children to have the same freedom to some extent. Now, ever since all the development has gone on and the buildings and construction and all that has gone on, we've had more problems with theft and other things that have occurred because of all this development that's happening. And it's very frustrating as a mom to see that I can't give the freedoms to my kids that I'd like to because of those concerns. I'd really appreciate if you would keep them in 1 acre zones and be considerate for those that intentionally bought this property for this reason. There's not very much of it left in the city, and we should keep it that way.
Thank you. And then Ms. Dutson.
Hello, I am Selena Dutson. I live at 3026 West, 8750 South. And the back of my property backs the green property to the left. To the left. And there's currently horses on that property, and I enjoy those horses and the view of that property. I really enjoy the view of that property. There's geese that come in. There's lots of birds. And having a fence there especially is going to bother me because I enjoy that property. I also feel that the country feel is gonna be taken away by rezoning that property. And it will have an effect eventually, maybe not now, but eventually on all of the properties in the surrounding area that are 1 acre. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Your turn to come on up.
Sorry, we got here a little bit late.
You're
I
just
don't know if
fine.
you need these.
We'll collect it later.
Okay, my name is Kirsty Bryson. I live at 3085 West, 8750 South. And my husband and I are actually, I think, the newest neighbors on the street. We bought our property about 2 years ago and have just built a home there. We don't have horses, but we knew we wanted to be on a 1 acre lot where we could be surrounded by horses, by kind of the nature that is around there. I have fox that come into my yard. I want to continue to see that wildlife. If you start to put in these subdivisions, that's gonna go away. The other thing is, when we bought our property, I specifically sought out 1 acre lot. This is kind of the last haven in West Jordan that has those 1 acre lots. It was important for us to find that. I told my husband I wanted to live in the city, but not have neighbors right next to me. I love my neighbors, but I don't want them that close to me, where if I turn on my radio, if I'm out in my backyard listening to music, that they have to share that with me. It's important to me to have that bigger space. It really makes a difference to have a 1 acre lot. The other thing is, West Jordan kind of prides itself, you know, we have our rodeos, we have kids that we want in 4-H, all of these things, yet there isn't a lot of space for this left. We have these few families, this small area, and if you take it away, once it's gone, it's gone. You can't undo that. You know, there's a lot of people that have lived there, like I said, 50 years. Some of my neighbors have been there. It's a tight community. I love that neighborhood. You know, it's important to keep these big lots and not just cram it down, cut them down. Just, it's important to, I think, all of us to have these bigger areas, this open space that just isn't available anywhere else. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kathy Anderson, and we live at the property at 3065 West Hahn Drive. My family has lived on this property for 56 years, and over the years, my father has tried several times to get the land developed and has, one time was able to, and then the city took it back from him when he got diagnosed with cancer. There is a 20-foot barrier for the Bingham Creek between the residents of Hahn Drive and 8750 South. And the two streets are completely different residences. The traffic with the commercial and all of the people at the end of the street is very busy. It would be nice to be able to have half-acre lots to allow family members to be close on those. After 56 years, there's nothing we can do, and the horses that are on that current property that she was just talking about are not ours. We have let one of the family members that live on 8750 have their horses over there for the last 15, 20 years for free over the summertime. So they're not our horses. There's only one resident along Hahn Drive that actually has a horse anymore. We don't have anywhere we can ride them. We used to be able to ride in the fields, but there's no fields left. So it's really scary for us to even let our children out in the front yard with the amount of traffic that goes up and down Hahn Drive. And I know I wrote to all the city council members, inviting them out to come and see the difference between Hahn Drive and 8750 South. 8750 South is a beautiful street. There's no sidewalks. They can still, I drove by one day and somebody had dumped a big load of gravel right in the middle of the road and nobody said anything about it. There's no way we could do that, be with the amount of traffic that gets stopped at the end of the streets. The mayor said he'd have the Traffic Commission come out and try to do something. I don't think there really is anything they could do with the track stations at the two ends of the street, and all the apartments and all the commercial. They've started developing the piping one. Their parking lot is completely full every single day. So I don't really think there's anything that can be done with the traffic. I don't know that we are against the traffic at this point. We would just like to be able to develop the land, and if the houses were down in that area, they could actually back out and then pull out onto the street. Trying to back out onto Hahn Drive at this point in time is very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry Bryson, 3085 West, 8750 South, and, you know, she does make some points that I think are valid and worth consideration, but at the same time, adding more houses doesn't decrease traffic. You know, there are other ways to do that. There are different ways this could be laid out that wouldn't be this dense. I'm concerned that as this happens, the next one that comes along says, you know what, you guys let them do one per half acre, how about one per third acre, or then one per quarter acre? And there's a lot of vacant land, right, or not vacant, but pasture that is just south of me. And it's another 7-8 acre parcel that I can just see, you know, some developer coming in and saying, hey, let's just put some stuff back there too. Like I said, this is a pretty rural area. It's a pretty small community, and I think it should be left that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on forward, sir. Oh. Do we want to suspend the rule? No, sir, hold on. Can we suspend the rules on that, or no? Okay. No, you've had your turn, sorry. I just want to know if it affects other property.
Hi, my name is Kayla Brooks. My address is 3225 West Starlight Drive, and I'm obviously a Brooks, so I'm involved in this. But I just kind of want to reiterate what they talked about before. Hahn Drive is a very different street than 8750, and there's a lot of different things that go on that street that obviously would not be going on Hahn based on what it is. The properties are also very different. These ones are very narrow and very long. And so trying to develop it in a different way to make it usable space is much more difficult. These are about 600 feet deep, and I don't know the exact measurements on 8750, but they're much more usable acres. So even trying to develop these into smaller lots that are only acre size is kind of hard. You actually street lock one of those parcels to actually have that happen. And so it kind of, for us, we feel like this is the best way to help clean up that area and make it usable space. We also, right now, I have horses and animals all around me. We're not asking for anything to be changed with that. As far as I know, horses are allowed on a half-acre parcel. So I think there's probably going to be somebody that has large animals on these acres. That's a very big possibility, or half acre, sorry. And we're fine with that. That's something that we know going into it, that this is an area that does have animals. We're fine with that. We don't want anything to change with that. We're not asking for any changes in 8750 at all. This is just these 3 parcels. That's it that would be affected by this. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, we'll let you have some time after the public hearing. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to add their thoughts to this?
My name is Kay Johnson. I live at 3060 West, 8750 South. We're longtime residents there, and we did build our home there because of the zoning. That's our intent, was our intent to live there. Over the years, I've seen several attempts, including the Jenkins people that live just west of this proposed change, come in and ask for the same zoning change that is asked for by these applicants. They were turned down, and within a short time, they went ahead and built homes. along with in accordance with the RR1 zoning. And I can't tell the developers what to do, and I wouldn't tell them that they can't build homes. But to change our zoning is a big deal. There's property just south of us behind the Calders that has recently changed hands. If this zoning application is applied for, there's a possibility that those people may put in an application just like this one. It's a foot in the door. If you crack an egg, it affects the whole egg. This is what our neighborhood's been. So I'm hoping you don't change things for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Brian Wilden. I live at 3080 West, 8750 South. And I grew up here in West Jordan. I grew up in that home that I'm living in now. And when I first moved out here as a kid, basically west of 3200 West was a dirt road. It didn't even exist as far as anything going on or whatever. We could go hunting in the west of there, pheasant hunting, all that stuff. Because of all the construction and the building up, we don't even see pheasants anymore, you know, and like I've heard, we get geese still coming around. We might once in a while get some wild animal, critter, whatever, coming out of Bingham Creek, which sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, but you know, it's like that's the country, and that's what I grew up in. And with all the rezoning and stuff they've done with or without permission, it's just adding to stuff, you know, like I heard on 8750, we've complained about the traffic going up and down there, speeding. The kid, you know, when I was a kid, we played out in the street. We didn't worry. We could leave our house and leave the doors unlocked. And the way the things are getting built up, you can't do that no more. You can't trust anybody. And you got all them new apartments coming on 3200 West, which, you know, everything that was built, from my knowledge, even the opening of 8750. From what I understand, nobody ever really wanted it other than one man to get to the hospital. And like I heard, he moved away a year later and they never closed it back up. Basically, once the stuff's built and it's done, it's done. You can't go back to what it was, you know. And like I heard before, is like, we got a nice little set community. Leave it alone. We're all happy with the horses and the neighbors, and you know, we're all a little tight community like we heard, you know, and I would love to see it stay the same.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this item and bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Do we want to start with that?
The applicant.
All right.
Normally let the applicant.
Mr. Brooks, if you want to come back up, you can address the concerns that you took note of.
Just a couple of things I'd like to clarify. I am a developer, but I'm also going to live there. These 5 lots that are run right up the center of the road, the first ones I proposed, that's me and my 4 daughters, one of them being in the back. She's going to live in the back corner. Paul Johnson, who's on the east side, is going to move his house from the front to the back because he's tired of the traffic on Hahn Drive. Now, what Roberta's going to do with hers, there's discussion of one of her children are going to build in the cul-de-sac. So these are going to be people that are already there. I live around the corner in Starlight. I'm just moving around the corner with my kids. So this isn't something where we're just going to go in and develop it and bring in whoever decides to want to build there. I mean, half of these lots are going to families that are already there. I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing is, I'd love to have 1 acre lots. I'm on an acre lot on Starlight. They're nice lots. How do you do it already? Otherwise, I couldn't do it. But if these guys have a suggestion on how we can get 1 acre lots, I'd love to listen to them, because it can't be done.
Sounds like a great opportunity for conversation after,
Yeah,
after the public hearing is over.
Yeah, they're 2 acre lots, and that's what I'm saying. They're deep, long 2 acre lots. That's the problem we have with them right now.
Okay.
And there is a buffer between them and 8750, and 8750 is not changing. It's just this parcel.
Thank you. Okay. Back to the Planning Commission. Who wants to start?
Who's gonna start?
Oh, Commissioner Thomas down the
I'll
end down there.
start. On the, map here. Oh,
Should work.
Push the button.
is that where the canal is right here?
Yeah.
And is there any proposed future, plans in the process to put a bridge or to expand that road any? So that'll just be a dead end from now until,
Yes.
okay.
Eternity. Commissioner Green, floor is yours, sir.
Where do I start? So first off, and then I'll address one issue. Whether this is RR20 or RR1, it's still RR and allows some farm animals. So, sorry, but I'm going to disregard that argument about the farm animals. I'm not going to disregard what you said. I'm just going to disregard the part about the farm animals. Here's where I'm going to go with this. Compared to the last plan, I think this one's worse. We went from 4 lots to 6. This is a slippery slope, and I think that this is what we've heard from the neighbors. This is a slippery slope. We allow 6 units in here, and then pretty soon we're going to allow on another piece of property another 5 or 6 units because we're going to combine them. And pretty soon, and I want you to look at the map when we have the general land use map and the zoning, this whole area is our R1. And what we're proposing is to put all of that's a lot of that's RR1. And when we talk about RR1, and we've got this big yellow, very low density that, yes, and I'm going to tell you that I think the future land use map is wrong. I think to say that we can put 2 units per acre on, that's probably not the common sense thing. What will happen is that there's going to be somebody that comes along and say, let's extend the road, and they're going to cut through and they're going to put it to 8750. If it doesn't happen in my tenure on the Planning Commission, which is between now and December, it's going to happen at some point in time. That's an inevitability. And so to put a road in there that looks like it's going to go through is going to create a slippery slope. And whether the canal's there or not, people can bridge canals and they'll figure this out because they're going to want higher density in an RR1 zone. Let me just address a couple of things, other things, besides the slippery slope. And I already talked about the fact that I think the general plan may be wrong here just because it says 2 units an acre in an R1 zone. I don't think it's compatible, and so specifically, criteria number 2, it's not compatible with land use, and so I will be voting against this project. I was the lone vote against R20,000, does not make it compatible, and criteria 2 does not work. Now, legal issues. The presumption is, when we deal with the zoning ordinance, the presumption is that the current zoning is correct. And I've heard nothing tonight not enough substantial evidence other than the fact that, and sorry, Brooks family, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but the only people that this benefits, the Brooks family. They want to put houses there for them and their family, and I understand that, so don't get me wrong, and I'm sympathetic with that, but the presumption is that the zoning is correct. And I've not heard anything except we want to build some houses for my kids that's any evidence why the zoning and why RR1 zoning in this area is not correct. The light industrial area across the street and the very high residential area across the street don't change the fact that that side of the street is RR1. And there's nothing that suggests there's nothing to suggest why RR1 is not the correct zoning there, other than the fact that we want to encroach and build some more houses. And that's the same, I have to tell you, if we're consistent, that's the same stance we took up on 5490 when we rejected that property Peterson was trying to build up on 5490. It was inconsistent. They wanted to put third acre houses in an area that have acre and half acre houses. The other thing with this is that, and we heard testimony, yes, this is for families, and this is for other families are gonna do stuff. We can't restrict the alienability on that property, and that property can be bought and sold at will. And somebody can come else and do whatever they want, and pretty soon, somebody's gonna say, let's build through, and so overall, I'm 100%, I was against it last time, and I'm more against it this time. I don't think it meets criteria 2 because it creates the pocket, and like I said, I have not heard anything that overcomes the presumption of going from 1 acre to 0.5 just to add more houses. That's not, to me, that's not a presumption to change a zoning. The zoning's correct. Now, I get what Mr. Brooks says. It's gonna be hard to build acre houses in there. But I think I saw at least one hand go up when he said, somebody tell me how to build acre houses in there. I saw at least one hand go up. I hope somebody can come up with a creative solution that allows that to happen and still keep 1 acre land in there. So for me, I'm gonna vote no on this.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan, did you need to go? Or was it 7:15? What time was it out? 7:15. Oh, I just wanted to be aware of your time. Any other comments? Commissioner Badon.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Green. This seems to me to be a spot zone. I see no compelling evidence that it benefits the community as a whole, especially looking at all that's currently zoned. So I tend to agree with that sense. I see no compelling evidence other than I concur with your desire to try to develop and put your family there and make a little bit of money off the property, but I don't think it benefits the entire community, and that's what our purpose is here.
Anybody else got any comments before I make a motion? I'm gonna make a motion.
Go for it.
Based on the information findings, and I'm gonna include testimony set forth in the testimony we've received tonight, I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation to the City Council to rezone 7.88 acres from RR1D, rural residential 1 acre lot zone, to RR20D, rural residential 20,000 square foot minimum lot zone on property located at 2947 to 3065 West Hahn Drive.
We need a finding. Finding.
By your criteria.
Oh, specifically, criteria number 2, that it's not compatible and does adversely affect the neighborhood. And I'll leave it with criteria 2. I could probably stretch criteria 3, but I'll leave criteria 2. That it's not consistent with or it's not compatible land use relationship.
Commissioner Badon.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Green, a second from Commissioner Badon. Any discussion to the motion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Said aye.
So motion carries 4-1. A negative recommendation to City Council. Commissioner Thomas is the dissenting vote.
No. I had not said aye, but I did say aye.
So we're unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay, we're unanimous in that decision. Okay, just want to make sure we get that right. Thank you. We'll move on to number 5, general plan amendment for amend chapter 6, parks, recreation trails, open space, etc. Sorry, I lost my space here. So this is the open space of the West Jordan Comprehensive General Plan, update the parks, recreation trails, and open space master plan referenced in the West Jordan Comprehensive General Plan with citywide applicability. The city of West Jordan is the applicant. She stood up. I don't know if she's starting or you're starting, Ms. Elgin. You guys decide. You want to flip for it?
The city's been working on a new Parks Master Plan, and this is our consultant, and she's got your presentation
Okay.
tonight. Okay.
That was a pretty good introduction, consultant.
I'm sorry.
No, nobody cares about the parks?
My name is Lisa Benson. I'm with Landmark Design. We're the landscape architects and planners that have been hired to update the city's parks, recreation, trails, and open space master plan. Thank you for letting me present the draft plan for you tonight. We've been working on this plan for quite a while, so we're excited to be getting it to this point. This document updates all the previous parks planning documents, and it sets goals for the future for parks and open space in the city. The plan is organized into 7 chapters, demographics and background in chapter 1, then we go into parks, recreation, trails, open space, priorities and costs, and then goals and policies. We had a robust public input process throughout this. We had a website open through the entire planning process, which is still active. We had a lot of focus interviews with sporting organizations in the city. We did public scoping meetings, a statistically valid survey, a draft plan, public open house, and we had an advisory committee that we worked with throughout this process. Looking at the statistically valid survey results, top priorities of residents include improving maintenance of existing parks, trails, and facilities, upgrading existing parks and playgrounds, preserving more open space. So you can see that a lot of focus more on your existing facilities than building new. The number 1 reason for using a park is its proximity to home. And 46% of residents participated in recreation programs in the last year. 52% of residents use city trails at least a few times a year. And 86% of residents believe the city is doing a good job overall providing parks and recreation opportunities. So that's a good statistic. Looking at demographics, you're set to increase from about 114,000 right now to over 180,000 by 2060. And that's actually a 57.5% increase, not 59. So it's still a good increase over the next bit of time. Your city is younger than the state and the nation, but a little older than the county. You have more children under 18 than the county, the state, and the nation, although you are gradually aging overall as a community, and you have a decreasing household size. Looking at a glance, you guys have a lot of acreage that currently serves the community, but we narrow it down when we look at level of service, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. This map shows your existing parks, and we also took a detailed look at all of your parks and the individual amenities within those facilities and other recreation facilities that serve the city. We have 4 different park types in the city, mini, neighborhood, community, and regional. When you add those up, you have 247 acres of total parks. Our committee advised us to include the acreage at the phase 2 of the soccer complex because the city has made such a significant investment in that facility, and you contribute to that. So things like the golf courses and any special use facilities like the rodeo arena, we're looking at facilities that serve traditional park uses. So your current level of service, we take the acreage of parks that you have, divide that by your current population and multiply that by 1,000, and that gives you 2.85 acres per 1,000 people currently in the city. Another analysis that we conducted is the distribution analysis. We assign a service radius to the different park types and look at how that falls throughout the city, so we get a sense of the distribution and how your residents are served by your existing facilities. And this map shows the distribution of your existing park facilities. Those areas in yellow are existing or future residential areas that are not served within those distribution areas right now. Overall, the city is generally well served, but there are a few pockets that are not served. And then out west, there are some areas that, as the city develops, needs will be increasing. So strategies for filling the gaps include developing parkland that you currently already own, which is listed there. Will be regional park when that's developed. That will help serve the city as well. We're also proposing 3 new parks totaling 13.2 acres to help fill some of those gaps on the east side down the road. And then sometimes you have to get creative when you don't have vacant land to develop parks, and so in some situations you utilize trailheads because the Jordan River Trail, for example, serves as a great open space and recreation amenity for a lot of residents. So this map shows the distribution of your city in the future when you take into account all of the parkland that the city already owns, the additional land that we're recommending for parks, and then also trailheads. The future level of service, residents are generally happy with the service in the city, and so we are recommending continuing that 2.85 acres per 1,000 people into the future. This is a minimum, you can always go higher, but generally to maintain this level of service and keep residents happy in the future, we're recommending that that is carried forward. Meeting needs in the future, 2028, you'll need a total of 376.1 acres. You have 322.6 already, and when you look at how many acres the city already owns, you actually don't need to acquire any additional land to meet needs by 2028, but you do need to develop 53.5 of those acres. So there's some work to be done there. And then looking to build out, the city will need to acquire 68 acres on top of what you already own to help meet needs, and with a development total of 137 acres by 2060. And this includes developing a couple of your detention basins into parks as well, so we're kind of trying to look at maximizing your existing facilities. The plan provides standards for all of the park types, including the average size and the individual amenities recommended for each of those categories. We also did a detailed analysis of your amenities, looking at typical service levels in the region and fine-tuning that based on what your city actually needs, what demands you're seeing. And we're seeing a few facilities that the city could use a little more of based on that, and we account for that in the plan. Other suggestions for parks include developing a wayfinding and signage master plan, conducting a lighting feasibility study, maybe extending the use time of some of those facilities if it works in the residential areas. And then also, if you do lose access to those fields at phase 2 of the soccer complex, providing fields to fill that gap. We took a look at recreation as well, and your primary recreation needs are met by the Gene Fulmer Rec Center. And the county provides recreation programs, and you also have private sports clubs in the city that also help meet recreation needs. The most popular programs were youth soccer, flag football, and baseball. The county also provides your senior community with services through the West Jordan Senior Center. And then you have a wide range of very popular community events that we looked at in this plan as well, and an active arts council with a variety of events as well. So our recommendations for this chapter include continuing to partner with the county on providing these services, but also working with them to improve distribution of information, just to help improve participation levels. And as growth continues out west, needing to revisit the idea of a recreation center out there as demand grows. Continuing with the development of a dedicated community and arts center, and then just ensuring that as the city develops as well, that the West Side residents will have access to senior and arts programs. Existing and proposed trails. You guys have a decent number of multi-use and urban trails and bike lanes as well. The plan proposes a number of miles of all of those types. This is the proposed trails master plan here, and the focus of this trails map is to provide a lot of looping options so that people have a lot of options as they can take off from their home and not have to just do an out and back. And then a major focus is also to secure those natural drainages and open space areas. Those make great corridors for trails, and just preserving that open space while you still can. And this plan also shows the locations of proposed crossings. The plan addresses some of those issues as well, just making sure that people have safe access in the future. The plan provides trail standards for the different trail types. And so the plan also recommends implementing a complete streets policy so that as your roadways are modified or developed in the future, that all modes of travel are addressed and served. And then there's also the urban water trail that is proposed as part of the Jordan River Trail Master Plan. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but that provides an interesting option for the city to explore and expand its recreation offerings in the future. We also recommend creating a dedicated source of funding in the future for trail improvements. And then establishing a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee to manage volunteers and assist with grants and funding, those sorts of things for the trails projects. Open space, you have over 200, almost 300 acres of existing open space. It's typically secured on an opportunistic basis, so there's no level of service typically for open space. But again, focus on preserving those natural drainages and other key natural features. You guys are actually pretty lucky. A lot of other communities, especially in Utah County, don't have the features that you guys do. So, take advantage of that while you can. And then considering some unique uses for open space where it's appropriate. Some communities are looking at things like bike parks or just a lot of different uses that may still fit with the open space but not impact too much. It depends on the location. Taking a look at costs to bring your existing parks up to standard and acquire and develop all the existing and future parkland that you need. And to develop that, it's a total of $68 million. This is a big number, and this could be lower depending how much developer contribution you might have in the future. Our committee felt it was better to show kind of the high end, the possibility, and we definitely recommend securing parkland as soon as you can because it never gets cheaper. So if you can, when the opportunity arises, definitely take advantage of that. The cost for implementing the trails improvements are $21 million. This does include a wayfinding and signage master plan. The trails costs, I should add too, that this doesn't include bike lanes. We assume that those costs will come in with your roadway improvements. And then some of the crossings that would typically be done in conjunction with UDOT, those are not included on this table. So your total cost, over $90 million for both of those. And the plan breaks down all of these ideas and recommendations
Lisa, that's through build-out, though.
That's through build-out. I should say that's to 2060, emphasize that. And this is in today's dollars. This does not account for inflation. So there's the detailed action and implementation plan with a time frame for all of these actions. And then the plan wraps up with goals and policies, which is not.
Cool. Any questions?
So, I have a question. What are we doing with the soccer parks? I thought FAA was screwing those up. Are we keeping those? What are we doing with the soccer parks?
I'll let Dave answer that.
So the current agreement we have with them expires in November of 2025. And up to this point, we haven't done any kind of negotiations or reaching out to see if they are amenable to extending that. There is a clause in the agreement that allows it if both parties agree to do a 20-year extension. But at this point, we are looking at that November 2025 date that would end the agreement at the soccer complex. We're also looking at different properties. Right now, we're looking at Ron Wood of trying to develop some multi-use fields up there for the possibility of that displacement. We're trying to get ahead of that curve and get some places built for soccer to go in case Salt Lake City is not going to allow us to extend that agreement, so we don't displace the youth into other cities. We want to keep our youth here.
Commissioner England.
Just how does West Jordan stack up? There was a statistic in there, 86% of residents were happy with services. How does that stack up with other cities that you've done studies on?
I think it's comparable, but it's actually higher than some of them that we've been doing recently. So you guys are actually doing pretty well overall. And then there was a chart in the plan. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that as well, comparing level of service to other communities. And built-out communities tend to have generally a lower level of service, but it's a good sign that your residents are, still pleased with that level of service.
So the higher number LOS is better, correct? I saw St. George had a 10.
Yes, but you have to keep in mind that not all cities calculate it the same.
Okay.
A lot of communities will add in you know, land that's outside of the city or up the canyon or, you know.
Gotcha.
So you can't, they're not really apples to apples.
Okay, thank you.
I think Commissioner Green was next.
You know what? Mine's more of a comment than it is a question. I'll hold off for a second.
Commissioner Thomas.
On some of those studies in the acreage and stuff, you said that you did not include any of the private areas, is that correct? So this is
Correct.
all just public land?
Correct.
Okay. I have a question a little bit, or maybe this is more of a comment, but when I was going through the packet and stuff, and just something that kind of caught my eye was the camping. Can you tell me how that came about and where the acreage that you're planning on that, or is that just kind of a ballpark figure from other communities? I just was kind of curious because that's the first I've ever heard that we'd even consider camping in our city.
Oh, that was one of those non-traditional uses that other communities are looking at, and they're thinking more like, if the Boy Scouts want to have a camp out, you know, let's give them a place in the city so we don't have to go all the way up the canyon. But, you know, again, that's one of those
Okay.
things you have to consider, is that
No,
road you wanna
that
go down.
explains that. I saw that and I kind of, where the heck did that come from? So,
Yeah, that's one of those kind of odd,
all right, thank you.
yes.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Elgin?
No.
There was a conversation on Facebook several weeks ago on our Facebook group talking about what to do with this area in here, but and you said you didn't include the rodeo area, but did you discuss that at all as far as ideas, how to kind of make a master entertainment center, you know, district for the city and right here in the city hall? Is that part of the conversation? I don't know if city staff's talked about this at all.
I know that there have been discussions about different options for the site here. This master plan didn't get into that level of detail. But I know that the city is talking about different options and different places to maybe locate the community and arts center. But this plan doesn't address it at this level.
Thank you. Anything else?
Actually, I do have and I didn't read this 100% through. Is there any talk about any trails along Bingham Creek on this side of the city from Jordan River on up through, anything like that?
Let's see, let's go back to the trails. Oops. Okay, well, you probably can't see it on that one. I have to turn to my plan here so I can actually see. We have looked at trails along the creek, and let's see. So right here on your monitor, you might be able to see that pink line with the purple that's overlaying it. So that pink line is from the Salt Lake County East-West Trails Master Plan. That's one of the, let's see, that is an alternative route that is proposed in that plan. The plan proposes a few preferred routes and then a few alternatives. So that is a recommended route in the county master plan. And we are proposing a trail that follows along that same route along Bingham Creek, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on this. Anybody have any thoughts or opinions on our parks proposal here, Parks and Trails? Not as much interest in the parks, I guess. Funny, because this one has citywide applicability, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring this back to the Planning Commission.
You were first.
Go ahead, your name's on there first.
Go ahead, Commissioner England.
Aye.
I'm gonna call Commissioner England.
All right. Motion here.
Can I make a
If
couple?
you're- Commissioner
I want to
Green
make
has
a
a
couple
comment.
comments before motion. There are a couple of things that we probably ought to look at. And when we talk, now this is where I'm a little bit cynical. I get that we have 300 acres of open land. Draper's got 4,500. They're a city of 50,000 people. We're a city of 115, gonna go to 100 and something. I think we need to set aside more than 300 acres. That's my personal
Well,
opinion.
this can compare apples to apples then. Draper's bounded by the
Oh, I
Wasatch
know they are,
National
but-
Forest,
And
and
we're
so.
bounded by the Ochre Mountains. Well, we're
But
bounded by Rio
what-
Tinto.
What's the difference? The Ochre Mountains is all privately owned.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I get it, but it's something that we need to consider as we look at open space and some of the stuff on the west side, we ought to consider. I'm gonna say that, and I hope that we can come up with a deal with the soccer parks to keep them there. I know the neighbors hate it and we gotta work out a parking something, but they complain about the parking at 78th and 40th all the time. But, I think those soccer parks are important, and we've gotta keep those equivalent soccer parks, because what we've got to figure out how to do is tap into those and use those as economic development. If we're bringing soccer tournaments into the town, they're going on, and if they're still at 78th and 40th, we can encourage people to go to Jordan Landing and buy hamburgers and hot dogs and whatever, and I think we need to continue that, and so hopefully that's a direction. The last thing, and Commissioner Quinney alluded to this, the one thing that I didn't see in this plan that I think we need to include are amphitheaters and bandstands. As you look at, I'm gonna use a city to our south that has a couple of really good facilities, and that's Harriman. I don't know if you've noticed Harriman's indoor amphitheater, that's great. They did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Greencoat there, and it was a great amphitheater, indoor, flat seating, but great stage. And they've got a bandstand in their city park behind City Hall, and they have food trucks there, and they have outdoor concerts. And those are the kind of things, and I think that's what Commissioner Quinney was alluding to too, is that as we build the art center, we probably ought to look at multi-use, and can we build a box and add an outdoor stage on the side of it, or other things. But I think we've got to include amphitheaters, bandstands, community meeting areas that we can attract people, that we can have concerts, that we can have those kind of things, because not only are they beneficial for the West Jordan residents, but as we've seen with cities like Sandy, that, you know, they have their amphitheater up on the corner in 94th, and they attract a lot of people to the city, and that's a good facility that keeps either people spending money in Sandy or coming to spend money in Sandy, and we've got to include those in our master plan. So that's all. I think that we just need to make sure that those things are headed for the future as well, and I'll leave it at that.
I agree. Commissioner England, the floor is yours.
Me too. I agree. Great points. Anybody have anything else? No? Comments? Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the general plan and incorporate the updated parks, recreation, trails, and open space master plan.
I'll second that. We have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you for your work on this. That was very good. We have the next item, text amendment, item number 6 on the agenda, text amendment to the interchange overlay zone. I'm not going to read what's on the screen because that's a lot. Amend the 2009 City Code Section 13-6, adding the interchange overlay zone citywide applicability. The City of West Jordan is the applicant. Mr. Gardner, you are on the clock, sir.
So, I'm gonna leave time. We have actually the consultant, John Jansen, who wrote this ordinance, and I made just some changes to where it actually be implemented. But these, as you can see, is the general purpose and the goals to implement that general purpose. And this, let me back up, this comes as a result of our April 30th joint meeting with the City Council, where we were asked to address the areas around the interchanges of Mountain View Corridor and some areas around Bangerter, to make sure that the areas are long-term sustainable, that the design is a good design that will be remarkable, that people can look at say that this is really an attractive area of the city. And it also puts some density in the places where density can be best dealt with and where it is appropriate. And so you can read over through those goals and the purpose of the ordinance, and I think they were very well crafted. And so I don't know what's wrong with our projector anymore, but it's really got a color problem. As you can see, these are the areas.
There we go. That
There we
might
go.
help a little bit.
It's A through F, and so there's several areas where this could be implemented, and the vast majority of them are along the Mountain View corridor and in strategic locations, and one is along Bangor. I keep pushing that to move the slide forward, and so I need to stop that. Okay, sorry. And so you can see I've taken, these are actually the descriptions of the areas where the interchange overlay will be implemented. For instance, I'm not going to read through all of these because they're in the ordinance itself, but for instance, Area A is Old Bingham Highway and Mountain View Corridor, primary manufacturing uses, commercial and transit-oriented development. Now, the transit-oriented development would go adjacent to the track station that already exists. And as you know, this is a very strong industrial hub for the area, but there is some, there could be some instances of where commercial developments could go in to support those industrial uses and the residents. You know, and I'll skip to D, and that's 7800 South in Mountain View. That is, you know, there's actually a large 80-acre piece of property that's vacant there right now. The Mountain View corridor runs right through, and the intent of that is to propose for additional higher density housing to the west of Mountain View and housing mixed with limited commercial uses to the east of the area. And so, you know, I want you to look at this holistically along that corridor, because it's probably not the best planning just to plan the whole city as single family. There are appropriate areas for multifamily and higher density housing, particularly in this day and age where single family is out of question for many families anymore. And so a better area than right on a major transportation corridor. It's right on Nartio Street. It's a really good idea in my estimation. And also you can see what I added later was the Highlands area is also affected by that same intersection. And so what this would do is give the area in the Highlands Master Plan the same opportunities to develop to these standards around that transportation corridor. And so to apply for a IOZ overlay, the area must be, first of all, located in one of the locations that will be adopted or may be changed, but whatever the city council chooses to adopt, they have to be in that area. It can't be an area far west on Bacchus Highway, and that it has to be in those areas. It must be a minimum of 15 contiguous acres. One parcel must be within 1/3 of a mile of a ramp to Mountain View Corridor or Bangor Highway, and it must have major access on one of the arterial streets of the city, 78 90th Old Bingham Highway or 5600 West. New Bingham Highway, when you get out there, is fragmented now, and so 5600 West is probably a good street, arterial street. It's been newly reconstructed that will carry the appropriate level of traffic. And if the area is located in a current, not expired master planned area, such as the Highlands, the acreage and proximity restrictions do not apply, because most of those areas in the Highlands have already been, they have a land use designation already as high-density residential or medium-density residential or commercial. But what this does is it gives the city more of an opportunity to impose additional design standards. And so the process for approval is the same as the planned community zone, which we adopted, what was it, a few months ago? So they need a conceptual plan, design guidelines, a development plan, and a development agreement that all have to be approved by the city before the zoning is adopted. And they also need, lastly, a traffic impact study to make sure that traffic can be dealt with, or what mitigating efforts need to be made to deal with traffic, because that seems to be a big concern to residents of the community. So the ordinance content is that there's building design, site design, which are different than the underlying ordinances, landscape and open space, amenities, uses. Now these uses will be specific to the interchange overlay, and there will be uses that will be specific to support the intent and the goals that we talked about first. Lighting streets, and then all of these requirements support the purposes of the IOZ. And then, as you can see in the ordinance, there are some very rigid design standards on what the city wants to see if it's adopted, what type of development that will go in this overlay. And I didn't put all of them in, but for instance, this is some mixed-use housing, it's a multifamily housing. They have some very strict design standards that the city will be adhering to. And there also is some differing street standards so that you create more of a community that is different and that's unique around these interchanges. It's just not the same old strip mall like we have with Shopko and the old Albertsons. That's in a planned community zone, but look what that's turned into. And so I think that this ordinance and these design guidelines really give what we're looking for, and that's sustainability. Now, I'm not faulting anyone in the 90s, that's the way things were done. Big box was the in thing. But it seems to be going away. We've been the casualty of 3 big box stores, Kmart, Shopko, and Sears. Luckily, the Sears was taken over by someone, but it's a different world we're going to be entering into. And so I think that what Mr. Jansen has created is some very good design standards that are sustainable and that will be very attractive around the interchanges of the city. And then lastly, I'm not going to read through I'm not going to read any of them, but I like how this ordinance also looks at caring for the environment, or at least takes a step towards that. So stormwater will be channeled into bioswales. Instead of inundating the storm system, it will be allowed to be retained on site and to percolate into the soil. Then also there's a requirement that any multifamily have a charging station for electric vehicles now, because I think they're going to become more and more used on our roads. I think it's going to be in the near future rather than the long term. And so overall, I think this is a very good ordinance that was crafted, and I recommend that the Planning Commission forward this to the City Council with a positive recommendation. I ask if Mr. Jansen and Ben Southworth are both here. They're both integral in creating this and having the idea. So if you want to hear from them, they are here. So.
My first question is this easily amendable that we can add U111 on this at some point? Because that's going to have some major impacts as well.
All it would do is we'd change the map and create a new area.
But with some of the developments that we've heard and that are proposed coming down along U111, why wouldn't we just include U111 now?
Because I don't think it's really an interchange or a freeway, and I don't know when it's going to become one.
But wouldn't we wanna consider that we know some point it will be, so let's not look 5 years down the road, let's look 10, 15, 20 years down the road when it will be, and get what we want now, even though it may be a little bit ahead of its time. It seems to me that we would wanna make sure we control what is coming down. UN11, I mean, we've heard 2 or 3 projects that are gonna go there, and now Amazon's right there, so I mean, things are happening out there. And I know it's not a freeway yet or a highway yet, but it seems to me that we should be taking control of what we can now.
So you mean create more of the intersections, is it interchange, that
And you
type of thing?
continue
That was what I
continue
was
these
just
ar-
gonna say.
Yeah, continue these arterial roads all the way west to 111, west to 111, I'm pointing the wrong direction,
All
and,
right, I'll take that and I'll look into it, okay?
thank you. Commissioner Green.
My question, because I missed this somewhere. This is an overlay zone. What's gonna be the underlying zoning for it? Is it gonna be PC?
No, it's the same zoning that's underneath it right now.
Because,
But the overlay zoning will prevail.
all right, because what I didn't, and you can clarify this, I didn't notice that there is how do I want to word this? I'll just say it. A mandatory open space requirement like we have in PC.
There's a 10%.
Is it 10?
10%.
Yeah, okay. Well,
And realize, this will be a different type of development. It'll be, rather than open space, it'll be more based upon the design of the building. And, so the design will be attractive. It'll be a different kind of development in West Jordan, so.
More beautification than open space, correct? I love it. I like everything. I see the architecture there is great, the environmental stuff with, stormwater runoff. I think it's great. Thank you.
Do we want to have Ben or the other consultant come up and talk about this? Do we have any questions for anybody else before we do the public hearing?
because we can always suspend the rules.
All right. Thanks for being here, guys. Might get a chance to speak. This is a public hearing, so we're going to go ahead and open up the pulpit here. If anybody wants to come forward and share their thoughts on this. Wow.
He's doing it.
He's doing it.
I don't do this, but Jordan Smith, live at 6452 West and 910 South. So out west, off of 78. Can you go back to the overlay slide? And then my question is, does this affect the cap and grade that's already in place for high density?
It will.
Okay, so this will allow more high density than what is already allowed within the city.
If the council approves.
So that's my concern. I mean, I don't know if you know, have driven out west towards the huge apartment complex that's been put in off of 5600 that just keeps getting bigger and bigger every time you drive by it. And so all this, the multifamily housing and obviously the traffic concern is huge. I know that's addressed a little bit, but that'd just be my concern, the changing the cap and grade of the high density within the city. So thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll give you a second after, unless you want to speak as a member of the public. But I don't think that's your role here today, so. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and let consultant A, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and let you come on up and make a comment. Or two if you want.
Maybe just two. John Jansen. Two thoughts. So one on the traffic, of course, we do require a traffic report, all right, which would hopefully let you look at the problem and look at some mitigating measures that might happen. And I wanted to add one thing to the open space discussion too. You'll see in there a section that talks about a signature feature, okay, in these areas as they develop. You know, that could be a large park system, a connected trail system to a linear park, whatever it might be that goes through that entire area. It could be plazas, it could be small parks that make sense distributed through some of these parcels. But the 10%, I think, is a nice number that's in there, but there's also this signature feature part, which may actually give you much more than that.
Thank you.
any other questions on
Any
parts
questions?
of that?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I had two questions, and then I'll let you go, Commissioner Green. So first one, we talked a little bit about the traffic issue, and we talked about the traffic study. Is there any component to, having nodes of mass transit, having more bus routes going out that way? I know at least at Site E, we've got the TRAX line, but we don't have that ability anywhere else. What has been the conversation surrounding mass transit?
So when Mountain View Corridor was approved by UDOT and constructed, that was phase one. Phase two will convert it into a freeway. And according to the environmental impact statement, all the agreements UDOT made, the mass transit component will come on Mountain View Corridor with phase two. So the minute it's converted into a freeway, then I think they've talked about those bus rapid transit, or they used to have them in Utah County where they were just had a dedicated lane for
Down the
bus.
center of the lane.
Yeah, something, or it'll be some type of bus component. But with phase two, they have to put in a mass transit component. Now, I know on the west side, that's been an issue. 5600 West at one time was supposed to be a bus rapid transit, but UTA doesn't have the funding for that, so they pulled back. But Mountain View Corridor has to have some component of mass transit, so.
But we don't have any, like, if somebody came in and said, hey, I want to do the west side of 78th and Mountain View, we can't say, whoa, hold on, we gotta wait until you get a bus route out here. We don't have anything on that, right?
No, because the city's not in control of mass transit. UDOT is in the state, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. The other question I had, and as he brought up, was regarding the cap and grade. I know that this is going to allow additional multifamily, which I'm fine with. I think that's a great area. Is it going to continue to skew our cap and grade numbers, or will we exclude ILZ cap and grade numbers so that they don't affect our overall percentages as we go forward? Because if that's the case, then we may as well just do away with the cap and grade. We're never gonna get caught up on it. I'm not advocating that we do that. I'm just
I have to say that it will skew the number, but we are building a lot of single family on the west side also. You know, and the percentage right now, if we keep building at the rate we are, is still 50 years before we'll ever reach the general plan goal. So that would be up to the council whether they wanted to eliminate the numbers in the IOZ from the cap and grade percentages. So yeah, it's something to think about, though. But you know, first blush, mathematical, more multifamily will change the percentage.
Oh, well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, it seems strange that we would continue to intentionally skew our numbers. We'll never catch up on the intent of the cap and grade ordinance in the first place. Something to look forward to at our council in a couple of weeks. Looks like you're playing musical chairs, sir. Okay, Commissioner Green.
So, I love the concept, so when I start talking negative, don't take this that I don't like the concept. There are a couple of things that I think we ought to address to make this maybe better. As I noticed, and my iPad died, so I can't go back to the sections because I had some references to it. But it doesn't seem like this in the purpose and the significant purpose. It seems to me that what we have to talk about here is walkable communities, and it doesn't seem like we talk about walkable communities very well, and these have to be walkable. And they also have to be enough that we can attract people from the surrounding areas and come in and have them walk. So we've got to have that balance, because these really do need to attract people. And so that's one of the things that I would like to see. I'm still concerned that the 10% open space is too small. You know, the PC zone is 15, maybe 15 for consistency's sake across the city is a better number. I don't know. The other thing that, and then I'll get to the let's see. The other one, transportation. These are all on, here's the problem. These are all on east-west, or on north-south corridors, but people are gonna wanna go east and west. And all the people that I hear complaints about is that 78th is bad, 90th is bad, 90th and 40th is the worst intersection in the state. I see you shaking your head. So 90th and 40th is a nightmare at night, yet we're adding more traffic to go east and west. So we've got to get ahead of the curve someplace, and we got to figure out how to get us and UDOT on the same sheet of music. If we're going to do this, I think the council's also got to figure out how to get, and I know UDOT is against east-west roads because they're so expensive. It's easy to build north-south in the west side of the valley because land is cheaper and more available, but we've got to figure out how to go east and west. And whether that's UTA, whether that's streetcars, whether that's, so we got to figure something out because it's only going to get worse, and the west side residents are going to kill us if we, when you look at the size of this acreage and the number of people that could live there, we could really create some traffic problems that we got to figure out. I think that the other thing that we have to do, and this is always one of my mantras with these kind of developments, is that commercial cannot be the last afterthought. And it's always been, as we've seen with PC zones in the city, commercial's always the last thing and it's always, it's this corner, it's the last thing that we develop. Commercial can't be the last thing to be developed in these properties. We can't allow a developer to come in and say, we're gonna build a 7-story along Mountain View corridor, a 7-story multi-use. Okay, the first floor is multi-use, that's great, it's empty, and we got 6 stories of multifamily because that's where we made our money. That's not what we wanna see. And somehow we've got to create that if a developer wants to come in, and I don't know how you do this in the ordinance, so I'm just throwing this out, but if the developer wants to come in and build something, they need to have some commercial in mind, and they needed to have gone to ICSC in Las Vegas, and they need to have talked with developers and say, yes, we've got stores in mind, and we've got some proposed tenants, and we've even got some tentative memorandums of understanding or something, because what I can see is that what the developer will come in and say, hey, I can get away with 7-story buildings right along Mountain View of multifamily, and I can build a couple other buildings that, cost me some money, but my money's being built by renting all these out, and we have empty buildings, and we don't have commercial and everything else, and I can see that occur. Last but not least, I would love to see the landscaping part of this changed. We live in a desert, and our water rates are expensive, and West Jordan City residents are complaining about water use right and left if you'll watch the Facebook pages. We need to talk about, is it okay to have 100% xeriscape? Xeriscape doesn't mean that it has to be 100% rock. I think we have to have a plant component, a local scape component, but to say that we have to have irrigated grass and it has to be at 50%, I think as we're talking about the future of West Jordan, I think we need to say no. We can go up to I think to be able to say is the land acceptable and amenable, and it's not just weeds. And that's just, we ought to be in the mode of particularly. And the other thing that as I just thought about this, these are going to be some massive developments on corners. We've got to figure out, before we allow a developer to come in and rezone this, we've got to figure out what the water storage is going to be and what the water is going to be, because what we've done in the city, I think way too long, is we keep building, and now we're 9 water. And we're paying the price for it because we're talking about multifamily that's going to use in a lot of ways more water, in some ways less because of the landscaping. But we have to, I think we need to look at, and I don't know how we put that in the ordinance, but we need to look at water. Because I think this I mean, like I said, they're great ideas. I think we need to have a lot of this stuff. And last but not least, 15 contiguous acres is too small. If we're 15 acres, what can you put on 15 acres? I think 15 contiguous acres is too small. I think we used to have 50.
Yeah.
I think we need to at least go something bigger, because if we start getting these little pockets of stuff at 15 acres, I think this needs to be a more comprehensive type thing, and I think 15 acres may be too small. I don't know what size parcels of land are in here, but I think that's just something we need to look at, is to say, is there a bigger piece of, is there a more acceptable size?
To that question, can any of this be carved?
What occurs is, there's very, very few developments that take on a massive piece of property that size and start building all at once. It'll be a phased development, and so that'll be part of an overall larger development, but it'll be phase one of that and be in a.
Correct, but phased by the same developer. I'm saying
Yeah.
they're not gonna come in and say, let's carve up B into a bunch of 15 acres,
No.
right?
So,
So, I mean, that might, I don't know, that might change my mind a little bit on that. And I agree with the landscaping conversation. I mean, I got that little message the other day, like a week ago, about flip your strip, right? And how you can qualify to, replace your park strip. I think we ought to find ways to reduce the amount of grassy areas. And the last thing I have, I know this is something that we've been talking about, I think is looking at table 9 in the amenities list, letting swimming pools continue to be a major amenity seems like a problem to me, because I'm not gonna go swim in these guys' pool. It's a no local, I'm okay with most of these other ones.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Awesome. Anybody wanna make a motion, or how do you?
Hold on, there was.
Oh, hold on.
You know what?
Come up to the, hold on, Ben, come up to the,
Let me see your iPad. This is mine.
if you wanna comment, Ben, we're throwing the rules out the window tonight anyway, just go ahead. I don't think Julie appreciates it, but that's okay.
Oh, Julie, sorry.
She's great.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the time that you dedicate. I know that all of you have many things on your plate right now, and to be here. And I just want to say, I kind of pushed this thing along to begin with. I wish this is something I would have thought about when the 8 years I served on the city council. I love what this does and what this does for the future of the city. So I commend you for your vision, the city council, when you guys met, is that in combined meeting to say, yes, let's go do this. But really the reason why this came about is we got to think about how do cities compete today. And you talk about, I don't know if it's a word, but the Amazonation of our economy and what's happening with, yeah, that's pretty good, huh? But what's happening with brick and mortar, and I don't think we can continue to plan and develop. We see it all over the place. So I think we've got to think smarter. We use the type of code, form-based code, what this takes into account is amazing in what it does. But just the goals that are in there to enhance the image of the city, to create jobs, long-term sustainability. We kind of focus on the housing component, but just as equal, and I would say even greater drive here, is the commercial aspect of this. We focus on one little piece, but don't forget the other part of this, the part that's going to drive property tax and sales tax revenue. That's just as important in what we're trying to accomplish here. But quality of your architecture, site planning, commercial viability, those things that you guys brought up are good things to talk about. There was a mention of traffic. Baked into this is for interchanges itself. And so in the packet there, it says, and I'll quote it says, it's intended to provide, under the streets, it's intended to provide the fastest and most convenient access to freeways as possible. And it goes through some details of ideas of how we do that. That's the focus. We get it. We want our commercial areas to be easy, because when it comes to sales tax, we want to suck that in from other communities. We make it really easy to get to our commercial nodes. And this compresses that commercial nodes in one location, takes advantage of economies of scale, and says, let's build something like Jordan Landing that'll be a draw. Let's take our housing components. Somebody, if you're worried about the housing piece of it, instead of spreading, if you think about where housing should be, and this was the mantra that I preached my 8 years on the council is, look, we don't want rampant high density all over the place, but there is a time and a place. It makes sense. There are places along freeways is the place where it should be in this other area, so that we avoid this cannibalization of each. And so we're being smarter about how we develop and the way we do this. So I think that's great. Walkability, awesome. This thing does that. This has suggestions in there to add more trails. And let's build it into a trail. Now let's make it a usable, and then let's keep those streets moving faster. So really innovative ideas are baked into this. So my hat's off to Larry Gardner and his team, the consultant, for what they came off. I feel great that, you know, to pass this on to all of you and say, hey, here's a great idea, and look what you're doing with it. So thank you. I don't know if you have any other questions for me. If you do, I'll take those.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work on this. It's great. All right, Commissioner Green.
One last comment. If we're, given the nature of the architecture that we're talking about, a lot of first floor, commercial, can I suggest that we get rid of the drive-ups? I noticed that there's a way that drive-ups are permitted. That just seems to encourage the kind of behavior that we don't want to have by having drive-ups. And so I would think that we ought to drop the drive-up section of the, as a permitted use or however, and just focus on.
I could hit Starbucks on the way up to my place, right? Yeah, I don't need to drive through Starbucks and get a coffee. All right, nobody's gonna do it, I'll just do it because I think this is a great project. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence explanations received today, including the conversation that we've had up here about some of the changes that have been suggested, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council for this application. Commissioner Green.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Quinny, seconded by Commissioner Green. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Sweet. I don't know how this thing works. There we go. No. We got two more items. We need to continue them, don't we? So, somebody want to make a motion?
Let me ask a question to Julie. Now, if these are continued to a date uncertain, do we still have to renotice it? So it has to be a certain date. So just continue both of them to a date uncertain. So.
Okay. Gentlemen, Commissioner Green.
I move that we continue items, what number?
We do them together? Separate motions. So 7 and then 8.
I move that we continue item 7 to a date to be determined in the future.
Commissioner Thomas.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And Commissioner England.
I move that we continue item number 8 to a date, an unknown or unspecified date in the future, undetermined date in the future.
And Commissioner Green.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner England, second by Commissioner Green. Any discussion to this motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. We'll see you guys all on Thursday and Friday, right?
At least Friday.
At least some of Thursday or Friday? Okay. Awesome. I move that we adjourn.